This is a greater experience of life, and you too can have this. Not my job, but you too can have this experience of consciousness. That's why we are teaching the classes. That's why we offer these books. That's why we're following these 365 days of richer living. Not because I want you to read this. I want you to be this. The life of God in me, I have nothing to fear. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That's what that means. Might something happen? Absolutely. We live in the world of physical form. Might there be some pain? Of course there's going to be pain, especially if you're like me and you keep running up against the brick wall trying to figure out something instead of surrendering and let it go. Move into the power and the presence of the God within you. Might there be some suffering? This is where we have choice. Ernest Holmes says in the Science of Mind textbook, when man, and he was of that period where there was gender, when the individual decides as a collective consciousness that we have learned everything we need to learn from suffering, we'll give it up. Isn't that powerful? When the individual has learned everything that it needs to learn from suffering in a collective consciousness, we will give it up. It will no longer be a part of the experience on this world. Suffering is a choice. We choose to suffer, whether we know it or not. We choose to suffer. I decided to give it up some years ago during Lent. I thought what am I going to give up, And they always ask you, give up something that you're really holding on to, something that you really treasure, something that you hold deeply. And I said, well, suffering. I was really into suffering. Everything I was doing was about how much pain and suffering could I get out of this, because then oh, poor me. Won't you have pity on me? Won't you feel something for me because I'm suffering? It worked for a little while. And then everybody started to move away. It's way too much suffering. This is part of the law. This is part of the universal law. Suffering is a choice. Understand that. Everyone I meet is part of the same wholeness in which I live. Everyone I meet is part of the same wholeness in which I live. Except for them, out there, someplace. Anybody else go there? Oh, you guys are so good. You're the choir. I love this. But there is that opportunity when we're watching the news, when we're listening to the political debates, when we're watching all of the activity that's going on and around and about this country, and we think, they're part of the same wholeness in which I live. That's not where I live. See how easy we open up that door? And then we wonder why somehow negativity and lack and limitation entered into our mind, into our life, and into our experience. Now, I am going to Washington, D.C., because I think it's time that they had a little bit of presence. I'm going there for a vacation. So let me make this perfectly clear. When I go on vacation, I expect you to be here, supporting Reverend Doug as he is going to be speaking, and he's wonderful, and he wants to be loved and nourished and nurtured by you. So I would like you all to be here as he shows up and be a part of that. Mary will be taking names. We're going to do wide view on the camera, so we'll have evidence. We'll make sure that you're all here. But while I'm there, I want you to collectively think about sending the love across the country. And I'll be the receiver. You all be the transmitters. And I'll be the receiver. And the week that I'm there in Washington, D.C., I'll just spread that love around. I'll spread it out to see how well it goes, so that we can bring some harmony into the system and the structure of which we're living. Now, this is what's happening. And I tell you, folks, New Thought is the up-and-coming next great impulsion into the world. And it has already filtered itself into Starbucks. No, you laugh. I brought evidence. I never say anything that's not true. 1926, Ernest Holmes wrote this book, The Science of Mind. And in there, he talked about how individuals, how people, how all of us are on the path of consciousness. And we are in an upward spiral of life. These are his words. We are in an upward spiral of life, that we are moving into a greater consciousness of understanding the experience in which we live. He says about this upward spiral that if you can imagine that spiral, that we are forever coming back around to the experience and the condition. So the experience and the condition, it might be relationships, it might be jobs, it might be authority, it might be religion, it might be theology, it might be illness, it might be prosperity or the lack thereof. Whatever it is, we keep coming back around to it. The great hope is that as we're in the upward spiral, when we come back around to it, we're at a higher level. So when I'm in my fear and I'm down here and I see something going on, I feel very small and helpless and hopeless, and I don't know what to do. But as I begin to move in that spiral and I come back further and further, my consciousness is raising higher and higher, and I'm standing at a greater level, and it's like I'm on top of San Jacinto looking down over the valley, and I know that the kingdom of heaven is here. Yes. So here's what Howard Schultz, the CEO for Starbucks, says. 3 weeks ago, I asked fellow business leaders to join me in urging the President and the Congress to put an end to partisan gridlock, and in its place, to set in motion an upward spiral of confidence. There it is. New Thought, Science of Mind, has entered into the consciousness of Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, and he has put the call out into the world and said, it is time. Now is the time. This is the place. You are the people. And it doesn't matter if we are political or we belong to a party or we're of one gender or another gender. That is not the issue. The issue is that we are individualized expressions of spirit. Every one of us is a divine expression of spirit. I want you to feel that. I want you to live that. I want you to be that. I believe that many people come to church, synagogues, temples, ashrams, centers for spiritual living,